Just having resilience is a big thing. A lot of people, even in the business world that I work with, a company doesn't work out or an idea doesn't come to fruition, and they're like, oh, well, like there goes that. Like,
Yeah.
oh, maybe I'll try again next year. And the successful people are the ones that they are relentless, right? They're working on 10 different ideas, hoping that one idea pans out. So
Mhm.
there's definitely a different mentality and mindset between the doers and the go-getters and those who kind of let some of those defeats overtake them.
Welcome to the Real Estate Mogul MD podcast. Thanks for tuning in and taking control of your financial future. This is a show where we not only motivate and inspire, we give you actionable real-world experience to help you live life by design. You'll hear journeys and stories from other physicians, investors, coaches, consultants, and entrepreneurs. And now, here's your host, Brett Riggins. Today, I'm joined by Dr. Brook Choulet, a concierge sports and performance psychiatrist, founder of Choulet Performance Psychiatry, and a leader in optimizing mental resilience for high achievers. She spent a couple of seasons working as a consulting team psychiatrist for the NBA Phoenix Suns and WNBA Phoenix Mercury. We're going to dive into building a concierge practice, the mindset for peak performance, and wealth building strategies for physicians. Here we go. Hey, Brooke, welcome to the show. How does it feel to be Brooke today?
Oh, it feels great. I am pregnant, so I've felt better before, but I'm
Congratulations.
here.
That is
Thank you.
awesome. Well, congratulations. Welcome to the journey. I am sharing a week with my children this week. I've got a
Oh,
10-year-old and 11-year-old. My son's 11. He turns 12 next
oh my
week.
gosh.
And my wife has flown to see her parents for a few days. So
Oh,
it's like a shock. It's a shock
yeah.
for me. So this is a shout out and gratitude to all the mothers out there managing households, keeping it all, and keeping the husbands in track at the same time. But yeah, I just feeling even gratitude towards the single parents, like making
Hmm.
that work in their life. So wow, some things we overlook, but hidden in all of that, Brooke, is the joy of children. So
Yes.
congratulations. And you're going to be doing this as a busy professional too. So let's talk a little bit about where you're at professionally. Now, you're a leader in concierge sports psychiatry. What inspired you to start your own practice?
Yeah, so I was a unicorn and I started my group practice while I was in fellowship. So I started planning for the practice in residency. I fast tracked to child fellowship. So I did 3 years of adult, 2 years of child, and then I launched my practice the day I turned board eligible.
Oh,
And at
wow.
that time, I had started hiring board certified psychiatrists and psychologists in the practice so that when I was done with training, I had a job to transition into. So I never intended or set out to fall into the sports world, but I'd always wanted to do concierge psychiatry. That's what my mom does in San Diego. And so I really wanted to do a group practice, which is different than what she does, which is solo. And that's kind of where my journey started. And I fell hard in the sports world when an NBA team hired me back in, gosh, 2021. And then my career kind of launched from there.
So, um, NBA. So that's the top echelon. Like that's as hard, that's as good as get. Everybody around that, even in the production, in the
Uh-huh.
facilities, everything has to be the top of the game. So,
Mhm.
what does that look like coming in as a performance coach? Like, do you analyze first to figure out where everybody's at, or do you have like where people need to be given their roles within the
Mhm.
organization?
Yeah, it's so tough with all the different jobs and acronyms now because now performance coaches are their own thing. It's a abbreviation CMPC or Certified Mental Performance Consultant or Coach. And so we have to be careful in the psychiatry world and psychologists that we're kind of like staying in our lane. But the two are deeply intertwined, right? So in my opinion, there's tremendous overlap in our thoughts or like in cognitive behavioral therapy, what we call our thinking errors with how we show up in life, on the court, on the field. So I really work with players, individuals, staff, anyone really to figure out what their underlying thinking errors are. And by unraveling those and addressing them, then your performance actually improves.
Interesting. And I saw it's been a few months back, but I think Aaron Rodgers did uh, a documentary, kind of like tracking
Hmm.
him as he changed teams. And it was interesting when he started talking about the I guess the psychology piece of it. And I know a
Hmm.
lot of high level athletes also do this. Let's get real. A lot of high level people do this
Yeah.
because it's all about mindset, right, Brooke?
Absolutely. And just having resilience is a big thing. A lot of people, even in the business world that I work with, a company doesn't work out or an idea doesn't come to fruition and they're like, "Oh, well, like there goes that." Like,
Yeah.
oh, maybe I'll try again next year. And the successful people are the ones that they are relentless, right? They're working on 10 different ideas, hoping that one idea pans out. So
Mhm.
there's definitely a different mentality and mindset between the doers and the go-getters and those who kind of let some of those defeats overtake them.
It's interesting, and that made me think of Benjamin Franklin and like how many failures that it took him to get one,
Hmm.
one win. And I think of that in my own journey too, because I'm like the big picture thinker, and
Uh-huh.
creative vision kind of thing, and so much of it doesn't work. And
Hmm.
how challenging is this too, Brooke? Because the stuff that does work, it's not like overnight. Like it takes
Right.
years and years and years. And there's so many small pivots, but that persistency, like you're saying, that resilience to keep pushing through, because
Hmm.
a lot of times it feels like it's raining crap. Like just, especially as a business owner, like it's just horrible, horrible, horrible. But you always have to have this mindset of not that I'm
Hmm.
trying to put a show on for anybody, but I've got to be optimistic. I've got to be positive. I've got to enjoy the process.
Hmm. And it takes grit, right? And the definition of grit is passion plus perseverance. And I'm sure you know this as well as anyone, like it definitely takes a combination of the two. You have to be one, passionate about what you're doing in order to then be persistent about it too.
And in your experience, so a lot of the listeners are going to be either, working for someone or working
Hmm.
for themselves. How can doctors start thinking like business owners while they're still focusing on patient care as well? Like, how can I be a high performance person and still, be as fixed on a single person?
It starts with self-awareness, right? Which is knowing your strengths and knowing what you do well and knowing what you don't do well, knowing what you enjoy, knowing what you don't enjoy. Because my husband's in medicine, totally in the opposite side in corporate. He's an employee working for a big hospital system and he likes it. Like he knows that his passion, right, is patient care only and not any of the business side of things. So that works for him and he's aware of that, so he's able to find a job that's tailored to his needs. So the people that want to venture out and do private practice, I do a lot of private practice consulting, and that's really the first thing that I ask people is, what do you enjoy doing? And if you're about to tell me it's anything but the business side of things, you should probably reconsider going
Mhm.
into private practice, or you're going to be spinning your wheels, spending so much money to outsource some of these things that are you even going to make a profit in the long run?
Yeah, there's a bad dad joke that popped into my mind. And so you're a psychiatrist, so you're on the head. You said your husband was working on the other. I thought he was gonna be a proctologist or something. I'm full
He's
of dad
internal
jokes.
medicine, so I mind he's body.
Yeah, there you go.
Yeah.
So, as a physician and entrepreneur, how
Mhm.
do you think that about wealth building beyond clinical income? So, tell us a little bit about that. Separating your
Mhm.
time from your money.
Yeah, it's important, and I like to think of this as a goal, right? That you're not trading time for money. Because when you're trading time for money, you're still, you're still stuck in a way. If you're not working, you're not making money. If you go on vacation, you're not making money. So what are some ways that you could diversify your income, whether it's medicine or not, that you can work to build passive income? And passive income, for anyone that's listening, doesn't know, is when you're not trading time for money. Essentially, you're making money without spending additional time doing it.
Hmm.
So for me, like we got into some real estate investing early and we would kind of buy homes with a physician loan and live in them for a bit and then do it again and rent out that home when we didn't have kids because we had a daughter 2 years ago and
I
that
see.
complicated things.
Yeah.
So that's one method, right? Is you can diversify and not do everything in medicine. The second way is you can start a group practice and hire people into your practice. So when I travel, I'm still making money. But I love patient care. So I don't ever want to lose that part. So I do trade my time for money in that sense. And so there is a part of my week, Monday through Wednesday, that's dedicated to that. So creating diversity is very important, whether it's all within medicine in different buckets or outside of medicine too.
Yeah. And talking about buckets, and when you are trading that time for, it's a different kind of money in that regard. When
Hmm.
you are able to do what you love because you want to, not because you have to,
Right.
you get to fill that heart bucket, that passion bucket,
Hmm.
as opposed to that money bucket when you are doing that thing that just used to be the time for money. But it's more
Hmm.
than that now, being able to fill that other bucket and help people. I recently reading a book called Build to Serve. It's a
Hmm.
great book, but it's understanding that it's our human nature to want to help other people, and we get such a huge return helping other people. When
Hmm.
that's the bucket that we like to fill. So when we separate our time for money and get to do things we're passionate about because we want to, that's the bucket that gets filled, and it's
Hmm.
really important. What financial habits have helped you grow your business and create financial independence?
Hmm. And this is a unique answer for everyone, right? And I know that I was fortunate at the time we got married, we set up our life to only rely on my husband's income. So just in case I didn't make a dime, or just in case everything, shit hit the fan,
Hmm.
that we would be okay. So we weren't the physician couple that went and were house poor and spent all of our money on a home and, stretching ourselves to pay our mortgage every month. We always live way below our means. I think that's important for wealth building in many different regards throughout life. But for us, that was really important so that I had that freedom and flexibility to build a practice that I loved, I was proud of, I was passionate about over time, rather than feeling this pressure that I have to accept every patient or have to charge X amount of dollars or, whatever the case may be. So to me, that was important. And the way that we structured our lives was just relying on my husband's income in case things didn't work out.
Hmm.
We didn't want to put ourselves in a tough spot. So that's what we did, and it's worked for us well. And then through my business, I'm extra conservative. So I always kind of hold my money in the business, whether it's just holding on to it for in cash, whether it's investing it back into the business by investing in new products or bringing on additional people. So to me, I still see us in the growth phase, and I'm not ready to start taking out that money outside of my own patient
Hmm.
care.
Yeah, and those are actually those long-term returns too. And you're talking about living within your means. It's not something that you notice. It's again one of those things that's just delay gratification is such a
Hmm.
huge piece of this, and it's so painful along the way. But it's a mindset shift. It's a
Yeah.
mindset shift for sure because you're seeing other doctors, other people. I have colleagues, doing millions of dollars a year, and it's like, oh,
Hmm.
they just got this new car, this big fancy thing, and
Uh-huh.
here I am grinding away, grinding away. What
Right.
mindset shifts separate highly successful individuals from those who struggle?
I think one is a scarcity mindset. So when you're working from a place of fear, you're always going to make emotionally driven decisions rather than logical decisions. I think that's something I've learned over time too, and have seen many examples in my office as well. But any decision that's fear-based or reactionary usually is not going to turn out well. So it's important to kind of revisit your goals. I do quarterly, so revisit my goals quarterly, find out if I need to pivot, what I'm hitting, what I need to continue to work on. Because without goals, you're just kind of driving a car with no destination, and it's like,
Mhm.
where are you going? So you have to have goals in order to get there.
Interesting. Um, in the same kind of direction, I was just thinking the goals piece is like we dream. How, can we dream too big? Can that
Hmm.
set us apart where we're dreaming too big and I'm never reaching those goals and I'm always finding myself like down on myself.
Hmm.
That scarcity mindset is also interesting too because in the times where we're most creative, is not in those times of, fight or flight, or where we're trying to
Right.
survive. Like, when this is the time for me where I'm able to just shut the world out completely and just think
Hmm.
it could be raining, like you were saying earlier. But if I can close that out and get to a mind space to where like everything is possible,
Hmm.
that's where that creativity, that's where this special thing is created within us that may make us this high performance person. It's just,
Hmm.
I've got all the information. I just need to make that 1 degree little, like you said, pivot. Like, I've got it.
Hmm.
What can I do? And when we're in
Yeah.
those, that shortage mindset is a perfect, it just doesn't happen. Right. So it's
Hmm.
perfect perspective there. It's like you do this all the time, Brooke. How does that work? Do you have to
Oh,
work
I
on
really
yourself?
agree. I agree with what you say about that almost like that 10x goal where it's like
Mm,
so crazy, right? And so for I'll use a personal example. For me, I had set out as crazy as it sounded 2 years ago as how old was I? 29 years old and like I did a 6 year BAMD program, so I was already younger than what I should have been with for where I was. But I set a goal. I'm like, I'm going to be the leading sports psychiatrist in the country.
mhm.
And that doesn't mean that if I don't get there, I'm going to be down on myself, but that paves the way for goal setting. So these are the things I need to do to feel like I can get there and then being happy with achieving those goals. So I think you can have both where you have this big goal in mind and then you're taking steps to get there. But what's important is that you're sticking with the steps and then happy when you're achieving those steps. And the steps are attainable. It's like the person that January 1st hits and they're like, I'm going to lose 50 pounds by April 1st. And you're like, good for you.
Yeah.
But having actually attainable goals, right? I'm going to go to the gym 5 days a week and sticking with that. Then you can be happier hitting those goals. So,
Yeah.
yeah, I think you can have your cake and eat it too, where you have the big goals, but then you're also having small, bite sized, actionable steps to try to get there.
Yeah. And you mentioned like the 90-day review. It made me think of Traction. There's a book called Traction by Gino Wickman.
Hmm.
And it's a great kind of an entrepreneur perspective of how we're setting goals and making sure we're taking traction. If we're not measuring it, how in the world do we know even what we're doing?
Right.
So just imagine, say, I'm going to lose 50 pounds and then never get on the scale. Right.
Yeah.
So how would you do that? But another thing that popped up in my brain as we're talking about this too was making sure that we're celebrating wins along the way. So even though it's
Hmm.
not that 50, if I'm celebrating one, I'm celebrating two. So just kind of keeping that win thing to
Hmm.
help us stay on top, to stay positive. How important is it to stay positive in the journey?
Oh, it's so important. Whether it's sports, business, it's the difference between positive self-talk and negative self-talk. And the trick that I encourage my patients, and they always look at me like, well, how can I even do that? Is not letting, so if here's kind of like your identity or your self-confidence or your idea of your self-worth, if you let things that are positive, like compliments or positive feedback or everything, elevate you, then you're also at risk of letting anything negative decrease your own self confidence and self worth. So I always encourage people that you're in charge of how you define that. And whether anyone says anything positive or negative, it should just bounce right off you and not impact it. You're the only person that's allowed to impact it. And so people are often stunned and it takes them a moment to process and they're like, well, I can't accept any positive compliments or feedback. I'm like, you can acknowledge them, but it shouldn't waver or change your own self-worth. That should be self-defined.
Have you had any experience so far with clients who are struggling with their perspective of money, like how they think about money? Can you tell us a little
Hmm.
bit about your experience there?
Yeah, it's interesting to ask people what their definition of success is. That's always a question I ask people. And some people jump to it's a number, or some people say it's a job title. And so helping people identify what they consider to be successful. Because again, it's driving that car with no destination. If you keep telling yourself, I want to be successful, but you can't even tell me what that means to you, well, you're like fighting an uphill battle. You're defining no goal for yourself.
Hmm.
So that's something, whether it's financially tied or not, it is important for people to define what success means to them. And then a lot of times what actually happens is that they say to me what their definition of success is. And I'm like, just to clarify, you actually already have everything you just said, right?
Hmm.
And they're like, Yeah, I think I do. And so it's kind of a breakthrough moment for people where, yeah, we all like trick ourselves into just telling ourselves we need to be more successful. But have you ever paused to think about how you actually define success?
How much of these conversations also go all the way back to the foundation, like the childhood
Mhm.
experiences?
Oh, so many. Like,
Yeah.
did you have a parent that always made you feel like you didn't have enough money? Did you have a parent that felt like your family was always overspending? Or did you have kind of penny pinching families where you felt like you couldn't spend it all, even though you had enough money to survive? So, yeah, a lot of those things are learned in early childhood or in early relationships. Definitely has a longitudinal background.
Interesting. What happens when the parents are so opposite? Like in our household, we've got a conservative
Hmm.
money person, and then we've got a liberal money person, and it could be night and day the difference, Brooke. So, is that the child that spends more time with one or the other? Is that kind of where that foundation is built in?
I think it's a lot to do with if that information is delivered to the kids,
Hmm.
because you and your wife or whoever, as partners, you could disagree about money, but the second it spills over into something your child can hear, that's when it starts to create problems. As long because I also have a background in child psychiatry, so I see the impact that can have if you have too much of those conversations, too many of those in front of your kids. So
Yeah.
as long as you could keep it behind closed doors and resolve those things and not let it permeate or spill over onto the kids, then you're safe.
And they hear everything. It's
Yeah.
unbelievable, except for
Yeah.
what you want them to hear. Then it's like,
Right.
huh? What? Just 1 second. I'll be. Yeah, okay. And but other
Yeah.
than that, it's so it
They're
is
catching
amazing.
everything. Yeah.
Yes, everything. They're like ninja listeners. They can be on the other
Hmm.
side of the house, and the day or two later, they like come and repeat back what you said. I'm like, where did you hear that?
Yeah.
You little
They're
sneaky,
sponges.
yes, sneaky sponges. For physicians who want to step outside the traditional career path,
Mhm.
what's the one thing they should start doing today?
Hmm. One thing that this I actually learned from a marketing expert, which I thought was brilliant, and I'll give her credit. Her name's Kate Ladon. She's on LinkedIn and she's
Mhm.
fabulous just about teaching LinkedIn skills. But she says that you will get your biggest audience and your biggest stories heard by thinking about where you were 2 years ago and what would have been helpful for you to hear. So
Mm.
if you can kind of tap into that, whether you work in hospital medicine leadership, whether you work in private practice, like wherever you are, think about where you were 2 years ago and how your skills could help someone in that role. So that's something I would say.
That reminded me of that book again. I like regurgitate books. I think a lot of people do that, but it's like you got to hear this, you got to read this, and it's
Uh-huh.
always the thing that I'm reading right now is the coolest thing in the world. But it made me think of that. It's called Built to Serve. The author
Mhm.
is Evan Carmichael, and what you were just talking about, they're thinking
Mhm.
about 2 years ago. Where you were at 2 years ago. Similar on here, the pain that's created, how you've overcome it, and
Mhm.
who you've become on the other side of that is that's the passion piece that you get to fill. And the idea of how can I help other people, this innate
Mhm.
thing that we want to do, is I've been given this perfect example. It may have seemed like a long rocky road or this pain that was horrible, but I can help
Mhm.
others now overcome that because of my experience. So the same way, what were you doing 2 years ago? Who was I 2 years ago? How can I help somebody get past that point? So
Yeah. And
great.
whether it's a course or a book or, consulting services, these are other ways to diversify your day to day. Because I love that every day is somewhat different for me. Like
Mhm.
Monday through Wednesday, I do patient care. Thursday, Friday, external meetings, media, and anything else. So it's really fulfilling that I get to do different things that fill my cup in different ways throughout the week.
My brain is just going crazy today. It makes me think of the movie Groundhog Day. Have you seen that one? That's
Uh,
an old one.
yeah.
And then what's it? Yellow Shirt Guy. It's what's the name of that movie? It's really bad. Anyway, he's a NPC in a video game, and
Hmm.
it's every day he gets up and does the same thing, and everybody's doing the
Yeah.
same thing over and over again. But how stressful does life get when you feel trapped inside of that
Hmm.
bubble? Like whatever you're doing doesn't make a difference. It's one of those things where it's everything. The returns are often so far away that delayed
Hmm.
gratification is a huge piece.
Hmm.
Wow. Yeah, it's great. So cool. I feel like I've been sitting on the couch for half an hour. What a joy. But hey, what's next for you?
Well, after I have this baby out of me in September, I came back to work 3 weeks later last time because I just love what I do too much. So I'll be back in action, working on opening a clinic up in Bellevue, Washington, and San Diego. So just trying to build out more sites and continuing to travel around and talk on sports psychiatry. So kind of same old for me for the time being.
That's awesome. Any more endeavors in real estate?
Not currently with the way that interest rates are.
Hmm.
It's
Yeah.
looking every day, but haven't found the right opportunity yet.
Yeah. Yeah. Keep talking it into fruition. The whole abracadabra
Hmm.
is a huge piece, especially within the groups of people that you're in. It's
Right.
going to be a huge piece of that. And it's date the rate and marry the property. That's the biggest thing.
Hmm.
Date the rate, marry the property. If it cash flows now, it'll cash flow much better when the rates
Right.
do decrease. So never turn that off. There's always deals all
Yeah.
around us, and there's high performance people all around us. And
Right.
I could imagine sitting in a session with you, Dr. Choulet. I really appreciate your time. Where can the listeners find you?
Thank you. Yeah, they could find me through my website, brookchouletmd.com. That's Brook with no E. And my email address and my direct work cell number are on there. So feel free to reach out.
Beautiful. And you enjoy the rest of your day. I see some palm trees back there, and you're
Yes.
real. Thank you for having a real background too. I love it. It's like it's not a fake. I see palm trees back there. Where are you?
I'm in Scottsdale, Arizona.
That's Arizona. Very
And
cool.
that is McCormick Ranch Golf Course behind me.
Nice, nice.
Yeah.
Awesome. Well, enjoy the rest of your day. Best of wishes
Thank
on your
you.
journey and with the new baby and the family.
Thank you. Have a good day. Thanks
All
for
right.
having me on.
Another fun conversation here on the Real Estate Mogul MD. Thanks to Dr. Choulet for sharing her time with us. Here's some notes I dropped in the bucket today. High achievers succeed because of resilience and mindset, not just talent. Physicians should think like business owners if they want career freedom. Building financial independence means creating income streams beyond clinical work. And if you're interested in optimizing your performance, you gotta check out brookchouletmd.com. We'll put that link in the show description just for you. Thank you for listening to the Real Estate Mogul MD.